journey begins in Ankara, the capital of Turkey, takes us through the eerie lunar landscape of Cappadocia, past Konya, home of the whirling dervishes, down to the port city of Antalya for our exploration of the Mediterranean coast. From Dalaman, we fly to Istanbul, the city that straddles Europe and Asia, both in geography and in culture. From the beginning of recorded time, Turkey has been at the crossroads of conflict, a fact that exists today. Its neighbors include Syria, Iraq, Iran, the new Russian states of Armenia and Georgia, Bulgaria, and Greece. The Anatolian peninsula of Asia Minor, which comprises modern-day Turkey, played an important role connecting the trade routes of the Middle East with those of Europe. The only two passages between these regions are the Bosporus Straits in Istanbul and the Dardanelles, near the ancient city of Troy. Although it has been continuously inhabited since the Bronze Age, Ankara is a thoroughly modern, well-planned city, distinguished by wide avenues, green parks, elegant shops, and a large number of good hotels and restaurants. These strange concrete mushrooms are strategically placed to discourage parking on the sidewalk.
There was a road between Susa and Sardis, let's say, today's Israel and today's Turkey, where
people had their trading route between Asia and Europe. Archaeologists have uncovered a great deal of artifacts along this route, dating back to the 3rd millennium BC. Due to a lack of funding, only a small fraction have been uncovered. The story of modern-day Turkey is the story of Mustafa Kemal Ataturk, who emerged as the military hero at the Dardanelles in 1915. After the War of Independence, Ataturk declared Ankara the capital of the new Republic of Turkey in 1923. This date marks the transformation of this small rural village into a modern capital city. Ataturk, who died in 1938, was respected and loved by both Turks and foreigners. His mausoleum, which is one of the city's key attractions, was completed in 1953. Among his many accomplishments were sweeping cultural and political reforms designed to reflect the wishes of the people. Religious laws were abolished between 1926 and 1930, leading to a secular form of government. Perhaps his greatest challenge came in 1928 when he decided to abolish the Arabic script and adopt the Latin alphabet. Primary education was declared compulsory, and great importance was given to the education of women. In 1981, his memory was honored by the United Nations and UNESCO on the occasion of the centennial of his birth. The oldest part of the city contains the ancient citadel, built during the Crusades in the 12th century. On the street of coppersmiths, you can find many interesting old and new items, including jewelry, carpets, costumes, antiquities, and embroidery. A walk up the hill takes you past many interesting stalls selling spices, dried fruits, nuts, and all manner of produce. Kocatepe Mosque is the largest mosque in Ankara and a busy place during lunchtime. This mosque, which was built between 1976 and 1987 in the Ottoman architectural style, contains numerous examples of cut glass art. The muezzin's call to prayer echoes through most Turkish cities 5 times each day, from sunrise to sunset. The unique landscape of Cappadocia was formed over millions of years as volcanic activity covered the land with a thick layer of soft tuff, followed by a layer of hard basalt. Over the years, water and wind erosion sculpted the terrain into an eerie lunar landscape. Flying low over this magnificent terrain in the quiet solitude of a hot air balloon is a wonderful experience, and we were lucky to have a beautiful morning for our flight. The first inhabitants of this region were the ancient Hittites, but the people who left a lasting impression in the form of churches carved into the hillside were the Christians who settled the region beginning in the 4th century. They came to escape persecution and to lead a monastic life. Although there is no hard evidence, archaeologists believe that the ancient Hittites first built these huge underground cities, which were later expanded and occupied by Christians. Reaching up to 9 levels, some cities were interconnected to facilitate escape from the marauding hordes of Persians, who streamed in from the east, and Arabs, who invaded from the south in the 7th century. The ventilation system, which is still working, kept the air fresh and removed the smoke from the cooking fires.
This is a nice example for the wall where a candle was attached to, because we are now in the church, in a little tiny rectangular church with, it's very typical with the altar and with the apse, and maybe there was a wooden or another kind of material used for a statue, either of the Virgin or Jesus Christ, or just simply the cross for those people.
Our home for the 3 days we spent in Cappadocia was the Cayo Hotel, now part of the Club Med chain. This elegant structure blends well into its ancient surroundings. Good food is one of the hallmarks of the Club Med group, and we were certainly not disappointed. Most of our days in Cappadocia were spent hiking in the hills, exploring its ancient dwellings and ghost cities. The soft nature of this terrain prompted the early settlers to carve their dwellings directly into the hillside. It is rumored that a modern prison was abandoned soon after it was built because of the high escape rate through the soft foundation. The spectacular panoramic views we experienced were punctuated by these strange structures called fairy chimneys. They were formed by the erosion of the soft, tough underlayer, leaving a hat of hard basalt rock. Nothing soothes the aches and pains of a full day of strenuous hiking like a Turkish bath. Sorry, it seems that the steam is fogging up the lens.
I believe we all know that the life of the silk carpet first begins in this cocoon. I'm holding my hand in. I'm pretty sure most of you do not know that each silk cocoon gives us approximately 1,500 meters of silk fiber. Now in this water, 80 to 90 degrees, the filaments, they begin to soften and they moisten and they begin separating from each other. They start to loosen. As he pokes them with the straws in this brush, he finds the ends to each cocoon. She takes roughly 20 to 25 cocoons and combines them into one by running them through this little loop here. All of them going through that loop come out as one single strand. Up her first spool, down the second, and here she'll wrap it around itself a couple times so that it will spin within its own axis as it's coming out. Up the spool on top, and over to the larger spindle and back. And because it's kind of sticky when it's wet, all she has to do is just touch it onto there, and it'll begin extracting. Remember, fringes are always the continuance of the warps on the loom. When a carpet finishes, the girl cuts it off the warps, and that's what gives us the fringes, and that's also how we can tell what material it is. Because silk is the finest, the thinnest. Silk will always have the most intricate pattern. Being the thinnest material, has the highest number of knots. Also, therefore, the highest amount of labor. It always has the very low cut pile, and of course there's the sheen. Another way of telling the difference is from the pattern. Wool on cottons will always be in floral patterns, whereas wool on wools are more primitive, nomadic pieces, geometrical. Because cotton, again, is thinner than wool, so cotton can have a higher number of knots.
Pottery making is also one of Turkey's ancient crafts, and in this shop, handmade items range from less than $100 to museum-quality works of art. Konya is the origin of the Dervish sect of the Muslim religion, which was founded by Mevlana in the 13th century. The Sema ceremony represents man's mystical journey to a state of perfection. It is based on the observation that everything in our natural world revolves, from the planets to atomic motion. Turning towards the truth, the practitioner whirls in a state of meditative prayer. The headdress represents the ego's tombstone, and the white skirt represents the ego's shroud. Antalya, Turkey's principal holiday resort, is an attractive city located on the Mediterranean coast. Dubbed the Turkish Riviera, the region is bathed in sunshine for 300 days of the year. In the picturesque Old Quarter, winding streets and old wooden houses add charm to this fast-growing resort city. Since its founding in the 2nd century BC, Antalya has been continuously inhabited by Romans, Byzantines, Seljuk Turks, and Ottomans. Here we boarded our Gulet, a distinctly Turkish-style sailing yacht that was our home for the 5 days we spent exploring the important historical sites of Turkey's southern coast. The general routine was an early morning sail to the next location, followed by a hike up the hill to an ancient site. At the end of the day, we would return to the boat for a delicious dinner, accompanied, of course, by the warm Turkish hospitality that we had come to expect. A swim in the warm Mediterranean waters is a refreshing treat after a day of hiking.
That need not be near level.
Exploring the southern coast brings with it a change in scenery, to pine forests, thick underbrush, steep climbs, and high humidity. Most of the time, trails were clearly marked, but sometimes we were forced to find our own way through the dense underbrush. One day was spent hiking from village to village, sometimes with the sound of the muezzin's call to prayer as a backdrop to the lovely terrain. At this local cemetery, we noted that birth dates are often marked by the Islamic calendar, while death dates use the Western calendar.
They use the Islamic year, and the Islamic year started with Muhammad, the Prophet, 662. So most of them do not write born in 1916 and died in 1985 or whatever. You would be able to read 1300 something.
We stopped in local villages for lunch and were always welcomed with warm Turkish hospitality, even after we invaded this local tea house, disrupting its male-only serenity. The ubiquitous cell phone has found its way into rural Turkish life.
I think it's nice to yes, so that's what.
The real treat during this part of the trip was a chance to have lunch at a local home in a farming village. Sitting on the floor, Turkish style, adds to the enjoyment of this wonderful experience. Delicious flat bread stuffed with vegetables and spices is baked on the hearth in the living room.
It might just be one of those things. These are always for.
Termesos, often called the Eagle's Nest, was originally built by the local people called Selimians. This fortress city, built high in the hills above the strategic port of Antalya, defied the armies of Alexander the Great, who retreated from a barrage of boulders dumped on him. The theater, originally based on Greek architecture, was later modified by the Romans.
The main difference between the Greek and the Roman theater is the structure of the building. It's because the Romans were building like that. You see the high wall, a compact horseshoe-shaped building, so that the acoustic and the building was perfect. A monument dedicated to all the heroes, especially Alcetas. You remember this hero? And most probably there were some statues in the niches.
According to legend, Chimera was the fire-breathing beast who terrorized ancient Lycia. Bellerophon, riding the legendary white-winged horse Pegasus, killed the monster, leaving the fires that burn today as testimony to the battle. Both Termesos and Chimera are mentioned in Homer's Iliad, written in the 8th century BC.
It's unbelievable. People come up here and bring their barbecues along and they grill.
Really?
Or if it's just the afternoon, they're here. They prepare tea.
The ancient city of Myra, located in the hills overlooking the Mediterranean Sea, was the center of the Lycian Confederation. Based on Roman architecture, this theater dates from the 2nd century BC. Greek theaters were used for entertainment. Their comedies and tragedies are the basis for modern theater. The Romans also used their theaters for entertainment, but of a more visceral kind. It was here that gladiators fought to the death, and slaves were mauled to death by hungry lions. Nearby is the St. Nicholas Basilica, commemorating the Bishop of Myra who lived here during the first half of the 4th century. Yes, this is the birthplace of the legendary old St. Nick, based on the many miracles performed by the bishop. Little is known of this Crusader castle dating back to the 12th century, which was built on the hill above the timeless city of Smyrna. The small theater facing the bay is a wonderful place for impromptu entertainment.
Yalçın kayalıkların sen yüce bir dağsın. Yalçın kayalıkların sen yüce bir dağsın. Eteklerinde oynar sürülerle kuzular.
Although there are Greek and Roman ruins here, including a large gate and ancient theater, the real attraction at Patara is the beach. This is one of the many beaches that attract vacationists to Turkey's Mediterranean coast. The climb up to the ancient Byzantine ruins on the island of Gemiler is wonderful in the setting sun. They made wine in this huge complex, which includes a connecting tunnel between the main church and the one lower down the hill. The view down to the Goulet is spectacular. The rather modern tourist town of Fatih, one of several along the coast, is filled with narrow streets, lined with wonderful shops, a food market, and delightful restaurants. Istanbul is a modern cosmopolitan city with a rich history dating back to the founding of Byzantium by the Greeks in about 600 BC. At the crossroads between Europe and Asia, this city of more than 8 million people is a rich mix of many cultures. Here the past blends with the present, but it is Istanbul's variety that fascinates its visitors. The museums, churches, palaces, great mosques, bazaars, narrow streets, and wide range of inviting neighborhoods seem inexhaustible. Emperor Constantine changed the name to Constantinople in 374, and it remained the center of the Eastern Roman Empire until the conquest by Mehmed II in 1453. The city's name was changed to Istanbul sometime in the 17th century. The covered bazaar was built in 1461, during the era of Sultan Mehmed. The more than 1,000 shops and restaurants in this city within a city include a post office, fountains, tea houses, and a small mosque, in addition to the huge number of jewelry, gift, and clothing stores. Both locals and tourists fill its ancient corridors every day. Our hotel was the Hagia Sophia Pension, comprising a block of recently restored 19th century apartments in the heart of the old quarter of Istanbul. The Basilica of St. Sophia, now called the Hagia Sophia Museum, is unquestionably one of the finest buildings of all time. Built by Constantine the Great and reconstructed by Justinian in the 6th century, its immense dome rises more than 160 feet above the ground. Although it was converted to an Islamic mosque during the Ottoman Empire, the Byzantine mosaics were left untouched. Facing St. Sophia stands the supremely elegant 6-minaret Sultan Ahmet Mosque. Built between 1609 and 1616 by the architect Mehmet, the building is more familiarly known as the Blue Mosque. Topkapi Palace was constructed by Mehmet II and is composed of many smaller buildings. At that time, the palace population was only 750, reaching a peak population of 5,000 in the 19th century. Between the 15th and 19th centuries, sultans and their court lived and governed in these opulent surroundings. In 1924, the palace was converted into a museum and opened to the public. Containing 200 display halls and 86,000 pieces of historical artifacts, it is the world's largest and richest palace museum. A stay in Istanbul is not complete without the traditional and unforgettable boat excursion on the Bosphorus, the winding strait that separates Europe and Asia. Its shores offer a delightful mixture of past and present, grand splendor and simple beauty. In past years, the Byzantine and Ottoman navies were centered here. Today, lovely parks and promenades line the shores. Turkey is a country of contrast, which once witnessed the ebb and flow of great cultures, from the Hittites, the Fijians, the Lycians, and the Persians, to the Romans, the Byzantines, the Seljuk Turks, and the Ottomans. On one side are the domed mosques, the muezzin's call to prayer, and the crowded bazaars with its piles of carpets and kilim. On the other side is a modern, rapidly industrializing country growing too fast and clamoring for recognition as a 20th century European power. I hope that this video has provided you with a better understanding of this complex country with its warm and friendly people.